Mainak Dhar wears many hats. With a day job as the managing director of General Mills, he is also a much-published author. In a rendezvous with consulting editor Pradyuman Maheshwari, he spoke about his latest book, Brand Shastra, and balancing personal life with a busy professional one. Take a look.
This is your second book on brands, and you've written a lot of fiction. Is there some similarity between brand and fiction?
Well, I think the biggest similarity is ultimately creating brands, communicating to people, telling a story. It's all about storytelling. I think the best brands are built when you tell stories about them that resonate with people. And I think fundamentally that's what all marketing is about. It's about telling stories, influencing people, shaping how they think about things.
Subtext of the book which says, use the power of marketing to transform your life. Is that really done by all of us?
I think all of us do it subconsciously, without thinking of it as marketing. As I was writing Brand Shastra, as I embarked on this book, the really starting point or the inspiration was the thinking that, look, I've been working in the consumer products industry for 20 years. And you realize people use all kinds of tools, principles, ways of thinking to build huge brands. But fundamentally, it boils down to understanding people, shaping their perceptions, influencing their behavior. And if you think of it, we do that every day.
What, according to you, is possibly the best use of a marketing strategy in everyday life?
One of the concepts which I think has a lot of applicability in helping people have a more rounded personality, a more holistic view of success is what marketers call the moments of truth. And the whole marketing principle is there is a first moment of truth, which is when you're actually showing up on shelf or in front of the shopper. But there is a zero moment of truth, which is what perceptions are people forming of you even before they meet you. There is a second moment of truth, which is the actual results the brand delivers. And the third moment of truth is what word of mouth are people spreading about you. That's a marketing analogy. If you think about how we traditionally bring up our kids, it's all focused on one moment of truth. The percentage you get, your rank in an exam, the institute you go to, the job you do, and that's how a lot of our kids are brought up. The reality isn't just about achieving one result or one rank. And that's something which is dear to me because I'd love my child, I'd love the next generation to grow up with a much more holistic view of what success, what a fulfilling life could look like.
Your first chapter talks about Adam's apple to Achhe Din, and that's a very interesting thing because over the last few years we've been hearing a lot about Achhe Din and the fact that whether they have arrived or not. Now, talk us through your thoughts on this.
Well, I think the first chapter really starts with the premise that ever since the dawn of history, it's all been about marketing. If you look at Adam's apple, all of us know Adam and Eve in that Garden of Eden, and that was the first feat of branding. That apple which had always been there suddenly became the forbidden fruit.
Right.
And in marketing terms, there was no awareness. Suddenly there was awareness, and then awareness became trial of the fruit and Eve, as the case may be, and then our history's clock began ticking. And I think a lot of what we think about as modern principles of marketing, what I've tried to establish is the same thought processes, the same challenges were solved, maybe through different tools. And if you fast forward today, when Narendra Modi seeks to reach out to Indians through Mann Ki Baat and Facebook and Twitter, it's a different technology, but it's the same thought process.
And would you say that Narendra Modi is a good marketer?
I think he's a brilliant marketer. I think he's a brilliant marketer because if you think of his positioning, I think it was wonderfully done. One of the things I talked about in the first chapter is almost, if you think of the Indian political landscape, it's been different brands with very different positionings coming against each other. One with a lot of heritage, a lot of lineage, one much more a brand of the people, almost polar opposites. And I think how they came together, how he has come up, if you think of Achhe Din, one of the core principles a good marketer is taught is come up with selling lines that resonate, that have an emotive appeal, that are catchy. And Achhe Din is a great example of that. One of the examples I talk about earlier in the chapter is Subhash Chandra Bose with Chalo Dilli.
There's an interesting chapter which is titled The Shastra of Building Loyalty. And just as you have loyalty cards and various attempts to build loyalty in modern day marketing, life is all about building loyalty. Right? And do you see that there is a likeness between the two?
I see there's a huge likeness, and my real inspiration for that chapter came from when I looked at one example where all of us are trying to encourage a certain kind of habit, loyalty to behaving in a certain way, which really started with how we inculcate the right habits in our kids. And what struck me is I looked at a survey which said 62% of parents in Mumbai hit their children. And then they go, more than I think close to 30% of them later go say sorry, or they cry and they buy gifts. And what struck me is, look, is this the best way of doing it? And I said, look, there are industries which are actually building very strong loyalty, encouraging a certain set of behaviors. Airlines, hotels are great examples. So I said, how do they do it? And that got the thought process going when I said the basic principle of how they do it is positive reinforcement. You buy my airline ticket, I'm going to give you certain miles. So I see a lot of parallels. Again, there's no theories or constructs, but it's just ways of thinking about how businesses have inculcated or encouraged certain behaviors and how we might take a leaf out of that in our own homes.
A lot of marketing strategies do fail, just as various strategies in one's life fail.
There's a lot of principles also on how companies think about dealing with failure, which is how do you quickly diagnose what went wrong? How do you use that as an opportunity to improve in future? One of the tools which a lot of companies use, which I've used as an analogy on how could entrepreneurs think about running businesses differently, is test markets, running multiple pilots, trying out things on a smaller scale before you really expand. Really trying to understand which part failed, because a launch could fail due to a number of reasons. So I think there are a number of lessons to be learned, which is the whole spirit of introspection, the spirit of continuous improvement, the spirit of learning from failures and building it into the future experience. And I think there's a lot to be learned on everyday life as well.
What would you say to marketers to learn from everyday life?
Best advice I would give to a marketer is embrace building relationships. Take the transactional part as an outcome. And I think in today's day and age of social media, marketers have a wonderful opportunity to do that. Don't start with, I want you to think of my brand in a certain way, or I want you to buy me. Start with, here's who I am. Be genuine, be authentic, and build that relationship.
Great. On that note, congratulations on the book, and thank you for being on Brandstand.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being here.